Hello, everyone, and thanks for taking the time to review the Santa Clara market analysis for March 2008. My name is Robert Whitelaw, and I'm a licensed California real estate broker. I'm also a member of the National Association of Realtors and a certified ePro. Let's go ahead and jump into the numbers for March 2008. We're going to start, as usual, with the supply and demand numbers for March. And the first bars we saw come up there were the inventory numbers. Now, that's the trend that we want to look at first. We're continuing to see trends that we've looked at in the past. Nothing has really changed. In fact, I had kind of hoped that we would see a slowdown in the increase in the inventory. We haven't really seen that. We'll see that also when we look at just the numbers going back over past months. But the inventory from 2007 to 2008 for the month of March is up 64%. That gives us a grand total of 5,522 homes on the market in March. Now, sales at the same time have declined. Look at that steady decline all the way from 2004. Each month, a steady decline, leaving us with a 35.9% decline in the total number of sold homes from 2007 to 2008. That gave us a total homes sold of 583. The new listings, which is the red bar, increased by 8.4%, and that gave us a total of 2,051 homes listed in the month of March. That's a pretty big percentage of the total number of homes even on the market. So these are things that you would sort of expect for this time of year. Remember, though, that we're only looking at the month of March for this. But when you take into context what's been going on over the last 6 to 8 months, a lot of folks are entering the market now. I think we're seeing more folks getting in and hoping that things are going to sell. The coming months will tell us if those folks' hopes are going to be realized and they can actually get more properties sold. These numbers aren't indicating that at least the month of March had anything increased in sales. As we can see here, we had a pretty big decrease. What this basically boils down to is we currently have about 9.5 months of inventory in Santa Clara County. Not great news for sellers. I was kind of hoping to see a pivot point here for March. We may still have to wait a little bit longer before we see that happen. And I think we're going to see a pivot. I think what we're going to there's no way of telling which way that pivot's going to go. I'm optimistic that we're going to see things pivoting towards more of a stabilizing element. But again, frankly, these numbers aren't what I was absolutely hoping for this month. Now, if we go ahead and just look at things over the past months instead of looking year to year, we're kind of checking out trends here. Now, clearly, inventory, even in the near term, has taken a really big jump. We've been really going up since December. Much more so this year than last year. We saw increases from December all the way till April and May of last year. But notice how much steeper the slope is now, a much higher rate of increase on inventory. We're also seeing some interesting increases in new listings. We saw the exact same thing between December and January last year, so that's all very normal. But notice that between January and February, we saw sort of a flattening and then had another bit of a jump in March. Now, the slight increase in March is normal. We've entered that time of year when more folks are listing their home. But we didn't really get that flattening in February that we normally would have seen. And then, of course, as far as sales are concerned, we've actually gotten an increase. Now, I think that's encouraging news when compared to past numbers. Obviously, we're not at the point where we were a year ago, but when you're looking just back over the past few months, we're seeing an increase. But to be honest, given the season we're coming out of, that would be a normally expected thing to see. We saw it last year at this time, and we're seeing it again. To give you the numbers on those, the total change between February and March, we had the number of sold homes increase 37.5%, which is good news. But normal news for the season. The number of listings in the month between February and March increased by 10.6%, and the inventory increased by 9%. Now, let's go ahead and take a look next at home prices for Santa Clara County. This is really the second or third month where we are actually seeing home prices in Santa Clara County down. So finally, after months and months of smaller communities within Santa Clara County showing numbers that were indicating a drop in average sales price, we're seeing a pretty dramatic drop in average sales prices for the county at large. I think that's twofold. One, I think certain areas that have tended to be more stable are slowing or flattening, and I think areas that were hit early on are now hit even harder. I know there are some areas that have continued to get hit really hard by drops in average price, and then there's places like Los Gatos that are still enjoying a high average price, but their average prices are now flattening, in some cases dropping just a little bit. Now, to give you the just hard numbers here, the average sales price in Santa Clara County was $984,325, down from just over $1 million in 2007. Now, the highest priced home in Santa Clara County was on Old Page Mill Road in Palo Alto, technically in the Los Altos Hills area, and that house sold for $6,498,000. The days on market for that property was 250 days. They were marketing that home for 250 days. The lowest priced home was on East Hills Drive in San Jose, and that sold for $224,000. And that home sold in 77 days. 77 days on the market. Now, the change from last year for average home price is down 7.5% in Santa Clara County. Again, this is the second or third month that we've seen this trend where average home prices in Santa Clara County are down. I guess I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but I know we've been anticipating this for a long time. I've been saying that this is what's going to happen. It was going to have to happen in order for the market to sort of equalize. What I'm hoping is that statistics like this, that more folks will hear about it and realize that we are seeing a market that is great for buyers right now. Now, if anything should encourage folks to think that they're going to get their best price now, it's numbers like this. And I think one of the few things that actually is going to fix the market is for buyers to see these numbers and say, wow, we're seeing numbers that are amazing. Now is the time to start looking at buying. Now, if we look at average home prices over past months, the trends, at least the short-term trends, become a little bit clear here. We're seeing a steady drop-off in price. Things peaked right around in May and June, August, right in that time frame last year. And then we saw a pretty steady drop, with a pretty big drop from November to December. A little flattening there in December, February, through February, and then another drop in March. The drop between February and March was very small. It was less than 0.5%. The change was 0.4, but still, it's a trend, and I think that the next month is going to be very interesting. I had thought that maybe March would give us some indications because it's such a flat change. Now, look back to March of last year. Between February and March, we saw a pretty substantial increase with a continuing increase in April that peaked out in the April-May timeframe, where we got our early summer season, if you want to call it a season at all. With the flattening we're seeing here, you might think in terms of the pivot that I've been talking about happening now, and instead of it being a pivot up or down, it's a pivot towards stability where things flatten for an extended period of time. It'll be interesting to see what happens in April. If we see another flat month, that could be an indication that we've kind of hit the point where things are going to level out for a while, but we'll have to wait and see before we can make those kind of conclusions. Now, we're going to go ahead and look next on days on market. Clearly, if you look back over past years, we are now setting records every month on how long it's taking to get homes sold. The least expensive home last month in March was 77 days. Notice the average is 76. So plenty of homes selling faster than that. Lots of them taking a lot longer to sell. The highest priced home last month took 250 days. That's clearly a very long time. But the average time is up 31% from the same time last year. I think what this just brings home how patient folks need to be on the selling side when they're out there getting their properties marketed. It's tough out there. People are trying to get the attention of buyers. But frankly, there are just not enough buyers out there when you take into consideration the inventory that we're dealing with. Now, if we just look at previous months, we can see how the trends are going. We get a peak at the normal times we would expect. And then, of course, over the years, we're seeing general increases. So you notice between January to January, it goes from 71 to 87 days. So a continuing increase in how long it takes to get a home sold. From month to month, from February to March of this year, we had a decrease of 6.2% in the number of days it was taking to get homes sold. We would expect that, just as we did last year. Between February and March, we saw a decrease in the number of days. But notice the difference. A much more substantial drop in the days on market between February and March of last year than between February and March of this year. We've had a very steady, very measured decrease in days on market from January to March. That is sort of how we got into this situation. Things gradually and easily change. Now, this is all very short term, so it's tough to make sweeping statements. But this is something else that might contribute to the idea that we're seeing more of a stabilizing change in the market, where just the curve where things sort of hit the bottom and flatten out a little bit. That might be what we're seeing here. Now, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next month. As I mentioned before, for buyers out there, I think these numbers just indicate this is a great time to start looking at buying a house. Even if you're a buyer who doesn't think that we've hit bottom yet or is concerned about that, lease options are a great way to go. If you want to make an offer on a home that's based on a lease option where you're just going to rent it for a period of time and then have a price agreed on now that you're not going to pay for a year or 2 years, I think folks who make those sorts of arrangements right now could find themselves in a pretty sweet position when it comes time to exercise their option. If you go ahead and arrange a deal right now where you buy a home for $500,000, you agreed to pay $500,000 for the home, and you have the rents you're paying going towards the down payment, and then in a year you're supposed to either exercise the option or walk away from it, I wouldn't be surprised if folks who do that now find that the amount they agreed to pay for that home in the end of a year or 2 years is a bit less than what the home would sell for. I think we're at that point now. I think that if you look statistically at how long it takes these markets to turn around and to change, if you look at how things have performed in the past in California, I think we're right there. I think we're right on the edge of where things sort of start heading back the other direction, or at least staying flat for a period of time. Now, I appreciate you taking the time to come and listen to what I have to say on these market analysis shows. Now, make sure to take a look at my others, which will be getting posted for the month of March for other cities in the county of Santa Clara. And it'll be a good way to sort of get a comparison between what the county is doing in general and what the smaller communities are doing. If you'd like any more information relating to real estate, local here in California, or even broader information, you can find all of that at my website at www.soldbyrobert.com, where I also do a weekly podcast, and I'd love for you folks to check that out. Also, if you have any questions about real estate, you're interested in real estate yourself here in Santa Clara County, or you know someone who is, please feel free to give me a call. I'd be happy to help you in any way I can. You can reach me at 408-852-0525. Thanks again, and I'll talk to you all next time.